Okay, we've just gone past 11 o'clock, so welcome to everybody, and congratulations on taking the time out to work on your business and learn about your leadership style. I'm working from home at the moment, so there is actually noise outside. I'm not used to that, so hopefully the noise won't be too bad, and hopefully you can see my screen. So I've got Eve sitting in for me, so if you have any questions, she's going to use the chat as well. So if you've got any questions or if you can't hear, please pop it up in the chat. So hello to those who are here. And if there's any questions, just Eve will be keeping an eye on the chat and keeping you all informed. So if I can have a thumbs up for people who can hopefully see my screen and hear me as well. And maybe you could go to display, so that you can see me talking as well as the slides that I'm going to be going through, because I've got a lot to go through today. So there's some really familiar faces there, so great to see you here to join me today. I'm excited to go through what we've got to go through, and hopefully that noise outside is not too bad. So this is all about identifying your leader language, you know, what your language is as a leader. There's a few people on the webinar that haven't met me before. So for those of you that haven't met me before or don't know anything about me, I've been a business coach for 10 years, or over 10 years now, quite passionate about business planning. I've just recently published my book, What's Your Plan, which I think is up there, you can see it there. I've represented Australia a few times for triathlon, do some motivational speaking, master licensee for Western Australia for Engage and Grow, and also Commitment's my second name. I've been married actually now for over 35 years, so I don't like change. So that's a bit about me, born and bred in WA, for those of you that don't know me. So what are we going to do here? We're going to look at identifying your language as leadership, what your leadership language is. So first of all, I'd like you to get a pen and paper to use as we go through this, and look at saying, how do you define leadership? So what do you define as, if you were going to, you know, finish this sentence, how would you finish this sentence? A good leader should always. How would you finish that sentence? I'd like you to put in the comments below, in the comment section, how would you finish that sentence? A good leader should always. And this is going to tell you a lot about your leadership. So finishing it with, you know, a sentence that you feel is what you think a good leader should be. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to just write it in the comments. A good leader should lead by example. Perfect. Absolutely. I think that's paramount. Practice what you preach. We all hate leaders that point the finger and, you know, say one thing and do the other. A good leader allows their people to feel comfortable and confident to do what they need to do, to focus on. Absolutely. A good leader should look after their team. Yes, absolutely. Very important. So we've got some really good comments here. A good leader should let their team light shine. Yes. A good leader should look after their team. Yes. Should encourage the team to lead. I think that's really important, encouraging their team to lead. So we've got some great comments here. So make sure you keep your pen and paper, because we're going to be using that a lot through the next hour. So when we're looking at this, you know, we want to say, well, what does actually make a good leader? What does make a good leader? So James McGregor Burns, he's a Pulitzer Prize winner and leadership expert. He's a historian. He defines leadership. This is what he defines leadership. And we're going to go through this a bit more. According to his principles of transformational leadership, which is really being an inspiring leader, an effective leader is someone who does the following. And this is what he says. It creates an inspiring vision of the future for the business. He also says here that a good leader motivates and inspires people to engage with that vision. A good leader manages the delivery of that vision and also coaches and builds a team so that it's more effective at achieving the vision. So I think a lot of what his definition of inspirational leadership is quite a lot of the comments that people have actually said. And I think someone had another comment here, a good leader should encourage others to lead. So exactly in line with what he says as his definition of leadership. So when we look at that, you know, when we're talking about leadership, it really needs to be a fluid practice. So anyone who strives to be a leader should always be challenging, always be able to change, so challenging themselves. So that's what we're talking about. Good leadership is a fluid practice. It needs to be constantly changing. It needs to be constantly challenging and improving based on the information that they learn and based on what their followers need from them. That's actually a lawnmower out there. I live opposite a park, so there's nothing really I can do about that because the park is being mowed. So my apologies if it's noisy. So are you a fluid leader? So are you agile? Are you constantly improving your leadership style? Are you constantly changing? And the way, based on the information from the people that you're working with and based on the information that they give you. The longer you act as a leader, the more likely it is that you will change the way that you choose to complete that sentence that I've just put to you. A good leader should always, because a leader of today is a different leader of what they were like 10 years ago as what they were like 5 years ago, because they grow and they learn about themselves and they learn about the team that they're with. So in order to grow as a leader, you first need to know, where do you stand now? You know, where are you now? And it's just the same with my passion for business planning. You know, if someone's looking at planning a successful business, it's important for them to get clear of what the vision is of what a successful business is. But then we need to reverse engineer it and say, well, okay, where are we right now in our business? And then we can create a path of how to achieve that. Leadership is no different. We need to say, well, where am I now in my leadership journey? And then we need to look at, well, what do we need to grow and how do we need to actually develop that? So let's break down this by looking at some things here. So these are, you know, we're looking at different styles of leadership. So we're about to dive into a short survey. Now, this survey is developed by leadership expert and professor Bill Torbett and psychologist Suzanne Cook-Grutter. I don't know if you pronounce it like that way. Anyway, it's called the Leadership Development Profile, and it's quite well known. And it will help you determine which leadership style you uphold based on the action logics that you most agree with. So get your pen and paper. I'm going to read out some statements, and I've got Eve here with me to copy the statements into the chat so that if you don't hear them, you can have a look at them. So I'm going to read these statements out, and then when I read them out, if you agree with them, I want you to write down the letter and the number combination of that statement. Now at the end, will determine what your answers say about you as a leadership, and you'll hopefully learn about your leadership. Now, keep in mind that the categories that the statements are actually organised in doesn't necessarily relate to the final outcome. So just hear my statements as I go through and write down the letter and the number and whether you agree with that or not, if that's part of your leadership style, if you think that's how you act as a leader. So let's dive in. The first one, the individualist, sorry. An individualist leader is self-aware. They're creative and primarily focused on their own actions, as opposed to overall organisational performance. They're exceptionally driven by the desire to exceed personal goals and constantly improve upon their own skills. So here are some statements that individualist leaders might agree with. So write down the number. So the first one is I1. And the statement is, a good leader should always trust their own intuition over established organisational processes. So write down, if that's what you feel that you act as a leader, write down I1. Now, Eve just put that statement in the comments so you can read it again. A good leader should always trust their own intuition over established organisational processes. So put a note if that's what you agree with. The second one is I2, it's important to be able to relate to others so I can easily communicate complex ideas to them. So for you as a leader, do you agree with that statement? Do you feel that it's important to be able to relate to others so that you can easily communicate complex ideas to them? So that's I2. Now, I3 is I'm more comfortable with progress than sustained success. I3, I'm more comfortable with progress than sustained success. So just write down each number and each letter if you agree with those statements. So the next one, the alchemist. Strategists are extremely aware, sorry, not alchemist, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, the strategist. Strategists are extremely aware of the environments in which they operate. They make it a point to gather a deep understanding of the structures and processes that make their business tick. But they're also able to keep perspective. They apply critical thinking and they evaluate what can be improved. So the strategist might say some statements like this. So this is S1. A good leader should always be able to build a consensus in divided groups. Strategist, S1. A good leader should always be able to build a consensus in divided groups. S2, it's important to help develop an organisation as a whole, in addition to the growth of individuals. So this is the strategist S2 statement. So if you feel this is you, and you might be thinking, can I pick more than one? Yes. If you feel that's true, just write that number down and that letter down. S2, it's important to help develop an organisation as a whole, in addition to the growth of individuals. So then the last one here, S3, conflict is inevitable, but I know enough about my team's personal and professional relationships to handle that friction. S3, conflict's inevitable, but I know enough about my team's personal and professional relationships to handle that friction. So that's the strategist. The next one, the next leadership style, the alchemist. What distinguishes the alchemist from other action logics is their unique ability to see the big picture in everything. They really have a big picture view of things, while also understanding the need to take details very seriously. Under this type of leadership style, no department or employee is ever overlooked. So here are some statements that an alchemist leader may agree with. So A1, a good leader helps their employees reach their highest potential and possesses the necessary empathy and moral awareness to get there. So the alchemist, A1, a good leader helps their employees reach their highest potential and possesses the necessary empathy and moral awareness to get there. So A2 is it's important to make a profound and positive impact on whatever I'm working on. A2, it's important to make a profound and positive impact on whatever I'm working on. So if that sounds like you, note that down. The next one here for the alchemist, A3, is they have a unique ability to balance short-term needs and long-term goals. I have a unique ability to balance short-term needs and long-term goals. So is that you? So the next style here is the opportunist. So this is the opportunist leader. Opportunists are guided by a certain innate level of mistrust in others, and they rely on a facade of control to keep their employees in line. These types of people usually believe in the adage of an eye for an eye. So here are some statements that an opportunist might say. So the O1 is a good leader should always view others as potential competition, even if it's at the expense of their professional development. So a good leader should always view others as a potential competition to be settled, even if it is at the expense of their professional development. O2 is I reserve the right to reject the input of those who question or criticize my idea. And I'm sure we've all met people like that. So that's the opportunist. Then the next one is the diplomat. The diplomat leader is not concerned with assuming control. Instead, they seek to cause minimal impact by conforming to existing norms and completing their daily task with as little friction as possible. Some statements that a diplomat might say is, so D1, a good leader should always resist change since it risks causing instability. So D1, a good leader should always resist change since it risks causing instability. D2, it's important to provide the social glue in team situations safely away from conflict. So D2, it's important to provide the social glue in team situations safely away from conflict. And the last one with the diplomat, D3, is I tend to thrive in more team-orientated or supporting leadership roles. So that's the diplomatic leader, the diplomat. And the last one is the expert. The expert is always at the front line of their field and continuously strives to perfect their knowledge and meet their own high expectations. The expert is fantastic as a contributor and a source of knowledge, but can usually stand to improve in the field of emotional intelligence. So here are some statements that an expert might agree with. E1, a good leader should prioritise their own pursuit of knowledge over the needs of the organisation and their direct reports. And E2, when problem solving with others in the company, my opinion tends to be the correct one. And I'm sure we've met people like that before as well. So that's the different types of leadership styles. So hopefully you've got a list of letters and numbers of the statements that you believe are true. So the next thing to think about is, which leader are you? So looking at your notes, and compare your notes to the table that I'm just going to get Eve to copy in the comments. We've got a democratic leader is if you answered, if you agreed to S3. An autocratic leader is if you answered to O1, O2, E1 and E2. A laissez-faire leader if you answered D2, D3 or E1. Strategic leader is if you answered S1, S2 or A3. Transformational leader is if you answered I1, I2, A1 and A2. Transactional leader is if you answered D3, and a bureaucratic leader is D1. So hopefully by me going through that, it's given you enough time to work out what leader you are. Now, the more statements you agree with, the more likely you practice a mixture of leadership styles. So say, for example, if you agree with everything that the strategist said, so S1, S2 and S3, this could make you 66% strategic leader and maybe 33% democratic leader. If you agree with just say S3, but also everything from the alchemist, then this would have you 50% transformational, 25% strategic and 25% democratic leader. So hopefully, you know, you're not surprised by the outcome, and if people would like to share any comments about what they have actually come up with, I'm more than happy to go through them. Hopefully we'll have time at the end. So when we're looking at these different leadership styles based on the answers that you've got, what do they actually mean? So the first one, when we talk about democratic leadership, so say if you answered to S3 and you're now, you know, you're known now as a democratic leader. Your style is democratic leadership. So for those who fell into the category of demographic leadership, you'll be happy to hear this style is commonly very effective. It's an effective style. These types of leaders make decisions based on the input of team members. And although the leader makes the final call, each employee has equal say on the direction. So a democratic leader is one of the most effective styles of leadership, because what it does is it allows lower employees to exercise authority. You know, and so often when I've read leadership books, they talk about, you know, the most innovative ideas come from the front line. So why wouldn't you give them an opportunity? That's where innovation comes from, is people who are actually on the coalface. So what it does, it gives them more skin in the game, because generally they make much more loyal connections within the company. So solving an issue under a democratic leadership style, it resembles how decisions can be made in companies, in company boards. What it does is a leader gives the team a few decision-related options. They also have open discussion held around all those options. And then what happens is generally the leadership makes decisions based on the input from the team, or the decision is put to a vote. So it's a very holistic approach to leadership. So hopefully we've got some people here who've, become, identified that they're a democratic leadership is their style. So the next one here is the autocratic leadership style. So when we look at the autocratic leadership style, the opposite of democratic leadership is autocratic. Now, it's very rarely effective long-term. In this leadership style, employees are neither considered or consulted prior to any direction taken within the organisation, and they're actually expected to adhere to the decision at the time and at the pace stipulated by the leader. So they're basically told, well, you know, that's it, that's how it's going to be, and if you don't like it, too bad. So an example of an autocratic leadership style might be when a manager changes the hours for the shift for multiple employees and doesn't tell anybody. Says these are the change of hours and that's it. Doesn't get any input from anyone. So in today's work culture, this type of leadership, it can't be sustained. You will always lose employees. So if you fell under this style of leadership category, I would say, it would be important to work on being more open to the perspective of the team, and to look at saying, how can I increase my EQ or my emotional intelligence to have more awareness of what the team are actually needing, so that you don't have to stand alone and don't have to have pushback from the team. You can actually get their input. So that was autocratic leadership style. So the next one here, and this word, I always find this word hard to say. This is the laissez-faire, which those of you, I'm probably saying it totally wrong, who learned French at school, this French term laissez-faire, it literally means to let them do it. So, you can refer to leaders who hand nearly all authority over to their employees. In a young startup, you may see this kind of laissez-faire leadership style from a company founder who he has no office policies yet, no work hours, no deadlines. Basically, he puts all his trust in his employees, while their focus is on basically the bigger picture of getting the company off the ground. And you might often see it in shoestring startups where they get their friends to come in and help, and they're just happy for them to help. So there's no boundaries, there's no rules, we're just all about getting the product to market. So while this leadership style, it can be empowering for employees because they can do whatever they want basically, it can also limit their development, and it also can overlook critical company growth opportunities, because there's no planning, there's no goals, there's no KPIs, there's really no structure to where you're actually going within the organisation, and you can have people going off and doing their own thing often. So this is as I said, it's often a very young leadership style that someone might say that was me years ago when I first started, because I just let people do what they wanted. So the strategic leadership. So strategic leadership, it sits at the intersection between a company's main operations and its growth opportunities. So this type of leader, it promotes a culture of inquiry, but it also accepts additional burdens in the interest of ensuring consistency and stability for everybody else. So strategic leaders are constantly vigilant. They're honing their ability to anticipate by scanning the environment for signals of change. They also have a tendency to want to study failure, their own and also their teams, as a constructive way to find the hidden lessons. So they're very, very analytical people. So they're always looking at the strategic way of, how this happened and how that happened and how we need to go the next move. Probably good at chess, probably. So, if that's you, if you're always delving deep into something, always inquiring and always strategizing about everything, maybe there's time to, look at releasing some of that. So the next one we look at is transformational leadership. So transformational leaders, they're always working to improve upon the status quo. So these people, they push their team to grow and to reach outside of their comfort zone. So this type of leadership, it's greatly desired amongst growth-minded companies, because what it does is it motivates employees to see what they're capable of. And in my book, I've recently published, I refer a lot to whether you've got a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And Carol Dweck's book on her study of people with growth or fixed mindset. Transformational leadership is all about encouraging that growth mindset. So looking at what is the potential, not going in and being strategic about, every little thing that could go wrong. It's about looking at, well, okay, what's the potential to go right here? So a potential downfall in this transformational leaders is that they sometimes can risk losing sight of everyone's individual learning curve, especially if the correct type of coaching and direction isn't provided. So if someone's very much a transformational, leader, and they're, really going 100 miles an hour to go in this direction, if everyone's not at the same pace, they really need to be mindful of coaching the people to have that understanding of that growth mindset and have that understanding of that transformational leadership to come with them and help coach them to get there as well. So transformational leadership, it can often be very inspiring to work with people that have that kind of leadership style. Sometimes I've seen business owners are awesome at transformational leadership, so much so that they actually hire a general manager to run the operations, and they look after the transformational leadership style. So it can be quite an amazing combination. So here we've also got the transactional leader. So the transactional leader, this is perhaps one of the most common types of leaders. These managers, they reward their employees for precisely the work they're expected to do. And this is being very noisy. We've now got tree cutters cutting the verge trees now. So this is not something that we would have all expected, but that's what's happening. So we've got the transactional leader. So these types of leaders, they basically lean on things like scheduled, like bonuses, staying within the status quo. They're very much transactional. Transactional leadership, it establishes roles, responsibilities for each employee, but it also encourages employees to stick to doing the bare minimum. Often you'll see transactional leadership in government, very much somebody who would go up into the hierarchy of government because they need to stick to the rules, they need to stick to the railway tracks, and the more they can do that, the more they feel like they're achieving a lot because they're ticking the boxes. And they're all about transaction. They're all about the management of that transaction of what needs to be done for that role. So thinking about yourself and, you know, you as a leader are you all about, you know, these little tiny, you know, tick boxes that need to be done rather than the bigger picture, you know, sticking to the schedule, sticking to the, you know, the status quo and keeping within the lines. And hopefully you'll understand that that's not always the best way. So the next one here, this is the last one, is a bureaucratic leader. So when we look at bureaucratic leadership, other phrases that can be, you know, help to describe this type of leadership include traditional or old school leadership. Sometimes they're used as the terms for a bureaucratic leader. So these types of leadership, they go by the book. They might listen and consider the input of employees, but they tend to reject ideas if there's any kind of conflict with company policy or past practices. So employees under this kind of leadership style, they might not feel as controlled as they would under an autocratic leader, but there is still a lack of freedom in how people are able to do within their roles. So this type of leadership can lead often to disengagement, lack of involvement, lack of innovation. Sometimes ambitious, growth-orientated companies, they really want to avoid this style of leadership. And often if you have a bureaucratic style of leadership yourself, you're quite old school and traditional in your leadership, you know, I'm the manager and, you know, this is how it's done, then you might actually repel people that are very transformational leaders, people that are inspirational leaders. They might actually get, repelled from that kind of style, and they might leave quickly because they don't want to be involved in a company that is like that. So if you find you hear yourself, you know, in that kind of leadership role, then it might be worth looking and taking a step back and saying, well, how can I be, you know, more inspirational? How can I be more inclusive of the team to keep those good people? Because we need people like that, because that way, you know, the company can progress to the next level a lot quicker. So regardless really of what type of leadership style you are and what type you fall into, we know there's basically aspects that we should all be trying to improve. No matter what style we are, as human beings, one of our basic needs of being a human is growth. And so we always want to be improving. And perhaps most important for business and for relationships is communication. So as a leader, you need to be able to clearly and succinctly explain goals, tasks, and everything in between for your team. And this means mastering all forms of communication. So this is including one-on-one communication where you're inspiring your team members and coaching and motivating your team members, or whether it's, you know, communicating between departments, your clients, your phone manner, even your email manner. You know, sometimes you've probably all got an email from someone and you've thought, gosh, that's a bit gruff. And even social media. So how are you communicating? So a large part of communicating well involves creating an open and steady flow of communication from your team, creating an environment that's trustworthy, that they feel comfortable to get feedback. When people come to you with ideas, they feel really comfortable to come with ideas because they know that you're welcoming the ideas and you're not seeing them as a threat, and you're not seeing them as, you know, as putting them down. So a few things that everyone can benefit from when working in terms of communication are reading body language. That's a big one. You know, I often notice if I'm invited to a board meeting or you know, a leadership meeting, I can see from the body language who's engaged and who's not engaged. So looking at your team's body language and seeing, you know, how are they presenting? Are they presenting open communication or are they closed? Another thing that will help with communicating in your leadership style, regardless of what it is, reduce ambiguity in written and spoken words. So just be nice and clear so there's no assumptions. And active listening. That's the third point that really can make a huge difference with your leadership style. You know, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And, you know, if we're in an environment where we're doing a performance review, we're doing a client meeting, whatever it is, a supplier meeting, you should always be listening twice as much as you're speaking so that you can take in a lot more, you know, communication, both visual and both what they say. Because the more that we can actually understand about them, the more we can help them at whatever it is that they need from us, whether it's a great work environment, whether it's you delivering a product to a customer, whether it's a supplier, just, you know, the more we can communicate and understand how we can help someone, you know. And that was, you know, Zig Ziglar, who's sadly passed away, but one of my heroes of business and leadership, and a huge inspiration for me is, you know, he says, you know, happiness is about, you know, helping everybody else get what they want. Because if you hear what people's challenges and problems are and help them to solve their challenges and problems, that it's going to make the world, your business world, your relationship with your partners, your children, it's going to make it a lot happier if we find out, you know, what we can do to help people. So communication is a really big key. The other one is keeping your team motivated. Now, motivation it's the fuel. It's what drives people to go to work every day. So as a leader, it's your job to inspire your workers to just go the extra mile, to build their self-esteem along the way. Look for what they've done that's amazing, not always nitpicking what they've done that's wrong. Because what this will do, it will help them to continue to stay loyal. And it will help them to increase their investment and success of the company. You know, the best people that I've had work for me over the years are the people that treat the company as their own. And they're people who are truly engaged and truly motivated and treat it as their own. So in order to keep them motivated, show them that you're actually committed to them. Ask for honest feedback. You know, feedback, you know, we do a feedback session with our Engage and Grow engagement clients where we ask for honest feedback, and everybody looks at somebody in the eye, and there's rules around it, and we have a section where we give honest feedback on what are they doing that's amazing contribution to the company, and what could they do a little bit better or delete or change. And this is an amazing session that people all love. They find it exhilarating, a little bit nerve-wracking, but also exciting, and they learn a lot about it. So being open to listening to people's concerns and their feedback, recognizing and rewarding them, you know, that's another one of our basic human needs. And one of our motivators of being humans is reward and recognition. So is there something within your work environment where you regularly reward and recognize your team members for, you know, how, you know, what they're actually doing or what somebody notes them doing? Is there any kind of process or any kind of, you know, a platform or place for reward and recognition within your organization? Because this really goes so, it really has a huge impact in people being engaged and people being really motivated to get up and to do that extra mile. So the other thing in regard to motivating them is understand the difference between the different work styles and the different personalities. Now, one of the things we do is we do disc profiling, and that helps us understand, is this person a really high attention to detail person that doesn't like a lot of person interaction? That's why they're, you know, the bookkeeper. Or is the person someone who needs lots of people interaction? They're in customer service, and they're not good at attention to detail. So understanding the people in your team and their different work styles and their different personalities, again, will help keep your team motivated, because if they're noticing that you're understanding them more, they're going to be more motivated. They're going to be a lot more motivated. The last tip about motivating them is say thank you. Thank you just goes a long way. You know, I have people that say, oh, reward and recognition, we don't have money for that. Oh, no, that will cost us a fortune. Well, just saying thank you. Giving them a high five and saying, you did an amazing job. You know, I just want everyone to stop for a minute. You know, Mary did an amazing job. you know, putting it on social media or calling the team together or sending it on a group WhatsApp. Just telling the people that you really appreciate them goes a long way. It doesn't have to cost any money. So these are ways that you can get your team more motivated, and it just makes such a difference to them when they are motivated. This one here is also another one. Practice delegating. Delegating is something that a lot of business owners find very difficult. I commonly find business owners that are so scared to delegate because they might get it wrong, that they're actually overloading themselves with way too much work because they can't trust anybody. So in essence, they're being a micromanager, and it makes the people feel bad because they're not being trusted. So it's common amongst leaders to believe that delegating is actually a sign of weakness. Some people think that, especially when they're a new leader, but it's not a sign of weakness. So by identifying the skills that your employees and assign them duties that best is suited to their skills. So I think it was Henry Ford said, hire people that are better than you at certain skills. That's what you're hiring them for, their skills. Renee, who works for me, she's my Excel guru. I wouldn't even try to make an Excel spreadsheet myself because there's no point. She's so good at it. Why would I do that? She can do it in a quarter of the time. So understanding, okay, you know, based on their skills, look at, okay, what are they best suited to doing that you're not suited to doing, and then you can actually look at delegating and become more of an effective leader by delegating those skills off. So also using communication skills to define expectations and explore what each employee might be willing to take on. You know, I had one company recently that they asked the team, and these guys were, I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to remember, they were some kind of technical or trade skill. But one guy said, look, I love playing with videos and with, you know, multimedia type programs at night. And so they started to get him to do their social media, and it went through the roof. Now, he was a trade. They had no idea he had this skill, but by saying to them what are the skills and what are the loves and talents do people have that they would like to share, it just opened up a whole new game and gave him a sense of achievement and contribution. So be creative in the way that you assign responsibilities and ask for feedback about the best way for them to take this on. Just because you're doing something and that's something you've always done, it doesn't mean it means you don't have to always do it. You can get somebody else to do it, and then that can free you up to learn more about, you know, your team. It can free you up to be a better leader. It can free you up to investigate different products and different markets, and makes a huge difference. So this trust also, it will give others basically a bit of a boost in their self-esteem that they're taking on a different part of their organisation, and it will get them to feel more involved, they'll feel more engaged, and it will make the overwhelm and the load of responsibility as a business owner, or in whatever role you have, if you're a manager or whatever, it will loosen the load for you to be able to go on and do other things. So that's a lot that I've gone through, and I hope I haven't overwhelmed you by going through all of that. You know, and you know, for me, leadership really is about inspiring people to be their best and inspiring them to be part of your organisation being the best. So, you know, I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join me. You know, I've loved sharing some of this information, and it's probably new to a lot of people. If you have any questions, or if you would like to post them in the comments, we've got a little bit of time. I would love to hear some of the leadership styles that people have. If you would like to get some of the references that I've used to put this together, just email me and I can send you the links of where I've got the information from that you might want to explore a little bit further in how to develop your leadership style a little bit more. So, you know, as Simon Sinek says here, a boss has the title, a leader has the people. which I really love that quote. And you know, it's interesting. One of the books, I'm pretty sure it was Leaders Eat Last, that I think was Simon Sinek's book. And he talks about, you know, leadership is about, you know, what you do when no one's looking. You know, it's about how you are in your heart as a leader. With everything you do. It's not just something you can switch on and switch off. It's something that is with you all the time. So I hope you've learned something, and I'm going to open the chat and see if we have some questions, or if people would like to share their leadership styles and what they have learnt, because we've had some interesting ones. So we've got someone who's a combination here of democratic, strategist, and transformational leadership style. So that's very interesting. So we've got and I think a lot of us are combinations of them all. Transformational, mostly. We've got somebody else here, and she's learned a lot. So thank you very much for that. Nice to see you. Other people have said here, yes, we've got combinations of both styles as well. So any questions before we finish up? And yep, we've got a mix here. Nicole's got a mix. We've got combinations here as well. So I think it's very interesting to see that most of us have combinations. And if we do have a combination, I think that gives us a sign that we've got, I suppose, signposts of different areas that we can develop in. And then that way we can look at saying, okay, well, do I need to work on developing better communication? Do I need to work on developing my emotional intelligence? Do I need to work on developing my understanding different people's personality styles and learn about them? Do a bit more on profiling. So I think by understanding that the style we are, and that a lot of us are a combination of them all, or two or three of them, or on the cusp of two or three, it gives us some ideas of where we can actually develop and take that to the next level of being a better leader. So I think that's 10 to now. So hopefully, if there's no more questions, I will finish off. And I'd love, just before I finish off, I'd like to have the #1 takeaway from everybody before they finish off, or as many people would like to share their #1 takeaway from this about their leadership style, and then I will finish up. So if you can just write in the chat box your #1 takeaway from today. Often we learn so much from other people's learnings, and you know, often giving that feedback will just spark something that says, hey, you know, I learned that too. So we've got here an understanding of the different styles. Someone needs to learn more about them. Listening to grow, continued learning, and growth is paramount. Absolutely. We continually, we're like a tree, we grow continually. A good reminder that they're on the right track, which is amazing. I think that's a really good learning, is that little, you know, feedback of, yes, I'm on the right track. Someone said here that they've got a bit of the laissez-faire style, time to step up, fantastic acknowledgement. Someone else has said their #1 learning is they need to learn more, continual growth, and continual improvement. There's so much to learn about leadership, and leadership is such an amazing way to leverage you know, what your business is doing or what you're all about, because you can inspire others to get on that same journey as you, and you can impact them massively. You can have a massive impact. So great. Thank you very much for your input, and thank you for your learning. And as I said, email me if you've got any questions, or if you would like me to send you the links to the references as well. So thank you once again, and I will stop sharing and I will be able to wave goodbye to everyone. So thanks for joining me, and I'm glad you all learnt lots. Thank you.